Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the blue and green world of New Haven grow larger on the screen. The merchant vessel Aurora's Dream carried medical supplies and farming equipment in her cargo hold. Simple things that would help the colonists build their new life far from Earth. "Looking good down there, Captain," said Lisa Park from her navigation station. She was young, maybe 25, with bright eyes and a smile that never seemed to fade. "The colonists will be happy to see us." Jake nodded and checked the cargo manifest again. 200,000 people lived on New Haven now. They had left Earth to find a better life among the stars. Most were families with children. Some were old people who wanted to see new worlds before they died. All of them just wanted peace. "Tony, how are the engines running?" Jake called to his engineer. Tony Rodriguez looked up from his control panel and grinned. "Smooth as silk, Captain. This old girl still has plenty of fight in her." Kate Sullivan, the communications officer, turned from her station. "New Haven Control is asking for our arrival time. They sound excited about the medical supplies." Jake smiled. This was what he loved about being a merchant captain. No politics, no fighting, just bringing things people needed to places they lived. Humans had been in space for almost 200 years now, and they had built 12 colonies beyond Earth. Not many compared to the big alien empires, but enough to call home. The galaxy was a big place with many different species. The Zephyrian Empire controlled hundreds of worlds with their powerful war fleets. The hegemony of Voss ran the biggest trading companies and made deals across thousands of systems. The Ethereal Collective was older than anyone could remember, with technology that seemed like magic. Humans were different. They fixed things, built things, and sold things. Other species liked dealing with humans because they kept their word and did good work. Nobody thought humans were dangerous. They were just useful. That was exactly what the aliens wanted to think. Admiral Vextar of the Zephyrian Fourth Fleet read the intelligence report with growing interest. His scales shifted from blue to dark purple, which meant he was excited. The report claimed that humans were building secret weapons on their outer colonies. The report was fake. The hegemony of Voss had made it up because they wanted the mining rights in human space. But Vextar did not know this. He saw only an opportunity to win glory for the Empire. "These humans think they can hide their weapons from us," Vextar said to his officers. "They think we are fools. We will show them what happens when lesser species try to challenge the Empire." The Zephyrians had been looking for an easy victory. Their last 3 wars had been long and costly. A quick strike against the weak humans would remind the galaxy who held the real power. Vextar looked at the star charts. New Haven was perfect for his demonstration. Far from Earth, lightly defended, full of civilians who could not fight back. The other species would see what happened to those who tried to deceive the Empire. On Earth, life continued as it always had. President Helen Carter worked in her office, reading reports from the colonies. Director Ben Walsh told her about new trade agreements. Fleet Admiral Susan Drake reviewed the small patrol fleet that protected human space. None of them knew that death was coming. The attack came without warning. Jake Morrison was drinking coffee on his bridge when space itself seemed to tear open. Massive Zephyrian warships appeared like monsters from a nightmare. Their hulls were black and covered with weapons. Their shields glowed red like angry eyes. "What in the hell?" Tony whispered. The orbital defense platforms around New Haven opened fire immediately. They were not military weapons, just tools designed to destroy asteroids that might hit the planet. Against real warships, they lasted less than 3 minutes. "Kate, send a message to Earth," Jake ordered. "Tell them we are under attack." Kate's hands flew over her controls. "Message sent, Captain, but I don't think anyone will get it in time to help." The Zephyrian ships moved into position around New Haven like hungry wolves. They did not try to land troops or capture anything. They just began to kill. The first energy blasts hit the northern continent. Cities that had stood for 50 years vanished in balls of fire. The colonists had no military, no weapons, no way to fight back. They could only run and hide and pray. Jake watched in horror as his scanner showed the destruction below. 200,000 people. Families he had brought supplies to for years, children who waved at his ship when he landed, all of them dying. "Captain, we have to do something," Lisa said. Tears ran down her face. "What can we do?" Jake asked. "We're a cargo ship. We don't even have weapons." But they tried anyway. Jake turned his ship toward the biggest Zephyrian vessel and pushed the engines to full power. Maybe they could ram it, do some damage, make the aliens pay something for their cruelty. The enemy ship's weapons locked onto Aurora's Dream. A single blast turned Jake Morrison and his crew into atoms. Their ship became a small star that burned for a few seconds and then went dark. The bombardment of New Haven lasted 6 hours. When it ended, nothing moved on the planet's surface. The oceans had boiled away. The atmosphere was full of poison. 200,000 human beings had become dust and memories. Admiral Vextar was pleased. His demonstration had gone perfectly. Now he would send his demands to Earth and watch the humans crawl like the weak creatures they were. He sent a message to President Carter. The Zephyrians wanted 3 star systems rich in rare minerals. They wanted humans to admit that the Empire was their master. They wanted complete surrender. If Earth refused, more colonies would burn. President Carter received the message in the White House Situation Room. She sat at a long table with her advisors. The room was quiet, except for the sound of breathing. 200,000, she said finally. They killed 200,000 of our people. "It was a demonstration," said Paul Grant, the intelligence chief. "They want to scare us into giving up without a fight." Admiral Drake studied the tactical reports. "Our fleet is small, 12 patrol ships and a few armed transports. We cannot match their numbers." "Then what do we do?" asked Ben Walsh. "President." Carter looked at each of them. Her eyes were cold and hard. "We show them what humans really are when someone hurts our children." What the Zephyrians did not understand was simple. Humans were not weak. They were not helpless. They had just been quiet. For 200 years, humanity had prepared for this day. Not because they wanted war, but because they knew it would come. While other species had been fighting each other, humans had been building, planning, getting ready. The galaxy was about to learn that there were worse things than being conquered. They were about to learn what happened when you attacked the wrong species. President Carter stood up. "Gentlemen, it's time to wake up the war machine." In hidden bases throughout the solar system, lights began to turn on. Machines that had slept for decades started to hum with power. Ships that looked like simple cargo vessels opened their hulls to reveal weapons that could crack planets. Humanity was done being quiet. The galaxy had made a terrible mistake. They had killed human children and thought there would be no price to pay. They were wrong. The news traveled fast. Within 6 hours, every human in the galaxy knew what had happened at New Haven. The message was simple and terrible. 200,000 people were dead. Men, women, children, grandparents, all murdered by aliens who wanted to make a point. On Luna, factory workers stopped their machines and stood in silence. On Mars, scientists put down their tools and stared at the red sky. In the asteroid belt, miners floated in their ships and felt something they had never felt before. Pure, cold rage. Amy Rodriguez was working in her computer lab on Europa when the news came. Her brother Tony had been on the Aurora's Dream. Tony with his easy smile and gentle hands that could fix any machine. Tony who sent her pictures of the children on New Haven waving at his ship. Now Tony was dead, murdered by creatures who thought humans were too weak to fight back. Amy's fingers moved across her keyboard. She had work to do. President Carter walked into the broadcast studio with slow, steady steps. The camera operator was crying. The sound technician's hand shook as he checked his equipment. Everyone knew this moment would change everything. "My fellow humans," Carter began. Her voice was quiet, but it carried to every corner of human space. 6 hours ago, the Zephyrian Empire committed an act of genocide against our people. They murdered 200,000 innocent colonists to send us a message. She paused and looked directly into the camera. Here is our message to them. We are not the species they think we are. We are not weak. We are not helpless. We have been quiet because we chose to be quiet. That choice ends today. The broadcast reached Earth's moon, where Dr. Alex King sat in his laboratory deep underground. For 30 years, he had run the TerraTech Research Institute. Everyone thought they studied farming and mining equipment. Everyone was wrong. King picked up his secure phone and made a call. "This is King. Authorization code Alpha 77. Begin Project Midnight." Across the solar system, doors opened that had been sealed for decades. Machines started that had been waiting in the dark. People put on uniforms they had hoped never to wear. Admiral Susan Drake stood on the bridge of her ship, looking out at what the galaxy thought was Earth's entire fleet. 12 patrol boats and a few armed cargo ships. It looked pathetic compared to the thousands of vessels the major powers controlled. Drake smiled. Let them think that. She opened a communication channel to her real fleet. "All units, this is Drake. Begin Phase 1. Let's show these bastards what we've been hiding." The space around Earth began to change. What looked like ordinary cargo containers suddenly opened like flowers. Inside were weapons that could punch holes through moons. Asteroid mining stations revealed themselves as military bases bristling with missiles. The quiet merchant ships that everyone ignored dropped their disguises and showed their true nature. Humanity had been preparing for war for 200 years, not because they wanted it, but because they knew it would come someday. While other species fought over territory, humans had been building the tools to end wars permanently. Commander Rick Thompson received his orders while drifting in the dark between star systems. His ship, the Shadow Walker, was invisible to every scanner in the galaxy. Quantum technology that made light bend around his hull like water around a stone. "Target package received," he reported to his handler, beginning deep reconnaissance of Zephyrian space. Rick had been watching alien military movements for 10 years. The Zephyrians thought they were the strongest fleet in the galaxy. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The other major powers watched the human response with interest but no concern. In the crystal halls of the ethereal collective, ancient minds that had lived for thousands of years made their calculations. Human resistance would last perhaps 3 weeks. Then the galaxy could divide their territory and resources. The hegemony of Voss was already making plans to claim the mining rights they had wanted all along. Their scheme had worked perfectly. The Zephyrians would crush the humans, and Voss would profit from the aftermath. None of them understood what they were looking at. Dr. Emma Taylor worked in a laboratory that officially did not exist. Her job was to study alien biology and find weaknesses. She had spent 15 years learning how Zephyrian bodies worked, how their technology functioned, how their minds processed fear. Now all that knowledge would be put to use. "We know their ship designs," she told her team. "We know their weapons, we know their tactics. Most importantly, we know how to hurt them in ways they cannot imagine." The first human strike force assembled in the shadow of Jupiter's largest moon. Captain Maria Santos commanded the destroyer Phantom Strike, a ship that looked like a simple transport vessel from the outside. Inside, it carried weapons that could tear holes in reality itself. "Remember," she told her crew, "we are not just fighting for revenge. We are fighting to make sure this never happens again. Every alien species is watching to see what we do. Let's give them something to remember." The transformation was not just military. All across human space, people were changing. The gentle merchants became logistics experts. The peaceful farmers became tactical planners. The quiet engineers became builders of doomsday weapons. They had tried to be the good guys in a galaxy full of predators. The predators had mistaken kindness for weakness. That mistake would cost them everything. President Carter signed the final authorization in her private office. The document was simple, just a few lines of text. But it gave humanity permission to do things that would make the aliens wake up screaming for generations. The Genesis Protocol was now active. Amy Rodriguez finished her work and leaned back in her chair. She had just cracked the Zephyrian military communication network. Every message, every order, every secret plan now belonged to humanity. She opened a channel to Admiral Drake. "Ma'am, you need to see this. The The Zephyrians are planning to attack. Our other colonies, they think we're broken and helpless. Drake's voice was ice cold. How many ships are they sending? Everything they have, Admiral. They want to finish us quickly. Perfect, Drake said. Let them come. We'll be waiting. The news reached the outer colonies within hours. The Zephyrians were coming to finish what they started. But instead of panic, the colonists felt something else. Anticipation. For 2 centuries, humanity had been the nice guys. They had traded fairly, helped their neighbors, and tried to solve problems with words instead of weapons. It had earned them respect but not fear. The galaxy was about to learn the difference. In hidden bases throughout human space, the first ships of the new fleet prepared for launch. They were not built to explore or trade or carry cargo. They were built for one purpose only: to make the galaxy remember that humans were the most dangerous predators ever to leave Earth. The gentle species was dead. The thing that took its place would make the aliens wish they had never learned to build starships. Admiral Vextar sat in his command chair, pleased with his victory. The humans had not even tried to respond to his demands. They were probably still in shock from losing New Haven. Soon they would surrender, and his name would be remembered as the conqueror of the human species. He had no idea that human ships were already moving through his territory like shadows. He had no idea that his every communication was being monitored. He had no idea that humanity's true fleet was 10 times larger than anything he had ever seen. Most importantly, he had no idea that humans had spent 200 years learning how to kill efficiently. The first lesson was about to begin. President Carter's final words in her broadcast echoed across human space. To our enemies, know this. You have awakened something that should have stayed sleeping. You attacked our children. You murdered our innocent. You thought we were weak. She looked directly into the camera, and her eyes held the promise of storms. You were wrong. We are coming for you. All of you. And when we are done, the galaxy will remember why you should never attack the wrong species. The message ended. Across human space, warships began to move. The hunt was about to begin. 3 weeks after New Haven died, the Zephyrian military world of Kethvar simply vanished. 50 million soldiers, their families, and support staff lived on that planet. They had the best defensive systems in the Empire. Orbital stations with shields that could stop asteroids, weapons that could destroy fleets. None of it mattered. Commander Rick Thompson watched from his invisible ship as the planet turned into a ball of fire. The Prometheus array had done its work perfectly. Dr. King's gravitational weapon had squeezed the planet's core until it collapsed. The explosion was so bright it could be seen from 3 star systems away. Target eliminated, Rick reported, to Admiral Drake. Beginning scan for survivors. There won't be any, Drake's voice came through the communicator. That's the point. Rick understood. This was not about military victory. This was about sending a message. The same message the Zephyrians had sent at New Haven, but written in much bigger letters. The news of Kethvar's destruction hit the Empire like a hammer. Admiral Vextar stared at the reports in disbelief. An entire world was gone. Not conquered, not captured, but completely destroyed. The humans had weapons that could kill planets. How is this possible? He demanded of his intelligence officers. The humans have no military. They are merchants and farmers. His communications officer looked up from her station. Sir, we are receiving a message on all frequencies. It's from the humans. Put it through. The message was simple. 2 words in perfect Zephyrian language broadcast across their entire territory. Remember New Haven? Vextar felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. Captain Maria Santos piloted the Phantom Strike through the outer edges of Zephyrian space. Her ship was completely invisible to their sensors, protected by quantum technology that bent light and energy around her hull. She could go anywhere, do anything, and never be detected. Her orders were clear. Find military targets, destroy them, disappear. Target acquired, reported her weapons officer. Zephyrian Supply Depot, Sector 7, approximately 10,000 personnel. Any civilians? Maria asked. Negative, Captain. Pure military installation. Maria nodded. Fire. The depot vanished in a burst of white light. The Phantom Strike was already moving before the explosion finished expanding. By the time Zephyrian patrol ships arrived, they found nothing but wreckage and the same two-word message broadcast on emergency frequencies. Remember New Haven. The psychological effect was exactly what Dr. Rachel Kim had planned. She sat in her office on Europa, monitoring Zephyrian communications traffic. The aliens were starting to panic. Their military commanders were requesting additional security. Their supply lines were being rerouted. Their confidence was cracking. They're afraid, she reported to President Carter. For the first time in their history, the Zephyrians are experiencing terror. They don't know when we'll strike next or where we'll hit. Carter nodded grimly. Good. Fear is a teacher. They need to learn what our children felt when their ships appeared over New Haven. Major Chris Parker crouched in the shadows of a Zephyrian industrial city. His team of 12 soldiers had been on the planet for 3 days, invisible to the alien security forces. Their mission was not to conquer or hold territory, it was to hunt. Target confirmed, whispered Sergeant Kelly Davis through the communicator. Zephyrian military commander traveling with minimal security. Take him, Parker ordered. The alien never saw them coming. One moment he was walking to his transport, the next he was gone. His security team found only empty clothes and another message painted on the wall in their own language. Remember New Haven. The commander was found 3 days later hanging from the city's central tower, alive but broken. He kept repeating the same words over and over. The humans are everywhere. The humans are everywhere. Fear spread through the Zephyrian Empire like a disease. Soldiers stopped going out alone. Commanders traveled with entire companies for protection. Civilians locked their doors and windows, afraid that the invisible humans might come for them too. The other galactic powers watched with growing concern. The ethereal collective's ancient minds recalculated their projections. Human military capability was far beyond their estimates. The hegemony of Voss began to question their plan to profit from humanity's defeat. But they still believed they could handle the situation. Humans were emotional, driven by rage and revenge. Emotional. Enemies made mistakes. They could be manipulated, controlled, defeated. They were wrong about that too. Admiral Drake stood in the command center of her flagship, watching the tactical display. Red dots showed Zephyrian fleet positions throughout their territory. Blue dots showed human ships moving like ghosts through alien space. Status report, she ordered. 17 military installations destroyed, reported her intelligence officer. 43 supply depots eliminated. 67 high-value targets eliminated. No human casualties. Zephyrian response? They're pulling their fleets back to defend their core worlds. Exactly as predicted. Drake smiled. The aliens were reacting just as human strategists had expected. When faced with an invisible enemy, their instinct was to gather their forces for protection. It was a reasonable response. It was also exactly what humanity wanted them to do. Amy Rodriguez worked at her computer station, monitoring every communication in Zephyrian space. She had been Tony's sister, but now she was something else. The voice in the aliens' machines. The ghost in their networks. Admiral, she called out. The Zephyrians are planning something big. Fleet Admiral Kexton is assembling everything they have around their home system. Over 2,000 ships. Perfect, Drake replied. Signal all units, begin Phase 2. Jennifer Ross monitored alien communications from her station on Europa. The ethereal collective was finally taking notice. Their ancient minds were trying to understand how humans had become so dangerous so quickly. They're confused, Jennifer reported. The collective's projections showed human defeat as almost certain. They're trying to figure out what they missed. What they missed, said Dr. King over the communicator, is that we've been planning this for 200 years. While they were busy thinking they were the smartest species in the galaxy, we were getting ready for war. The hegemony of Voss was also starting to worry. Their corporate leaders held emergency meetings to discuss the human threat. Some suggested negotiating with Earth. Others wanted to increase their own military forces. All of them were thinking the same thing. Maybe they had made a mistake. Captain Sandra Mitchell received her orders while her ship, the Nemesis, waited in the darkness between stars. She commanded an assault carrier loaded with weapons that could crack moons. Her target was the most heavily defended system in Zephyrian space. All units, this is Mitchell. Begin final approach. Remember, we're not just fighting for victory, we're fighting to make sure no one ever attacks human children again. Her fleet moved through hyperspace like a storm. Behind them came more ships, destroyers, cruisers, carriers, and weapons platforms. The real human fleet was finally showing itself. The Zephyrians had no idea what was coming. Admiral Vextar sat in his command chair, trying to understand the reports flooding in from across the Empire. Human ships were everywhere, but they were impossible to track. They appeared, struck, and vanished like nightmares. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving another message from the humans." "Not those two words again," Vextar muttered. "No, sir. This one is different. It's from their fleet admiral." The message appeared on the main screen. Admiral Susan Drake spoke from the bridge of her flagship. Her voice was calm and professional, but her eyes held the promise of death. "Admiral Vextar, you wanted to demonstrate your power by murdering our children. Now we will demonstrate ours. You have 12 hours to surrender your entire fleet. If you refuse, we will show you what happens when you attack the wrong species." The message ended. Vextar stared at the screen in silence. "Sir," his tactical officer spoke quietly, "our sensors are detecting massive hyperspace distortions. Something big is coming." "How big?" "Sir, I think it's the entire human fleet." Vextar felt his blood turn cold. Around him, his officers waited for orders. The Empire's greatest military leader, the conqueror of a dozen worlds, sat frozen in his chair. For the first time in his life, he understood what the humans had felt. When his ships appeared over New Haven, complete helpless terror. The 12 hours passed in silence. No surrender came from the Zephyrian fleet. Admiral Drake nodded to her weapons officer. "Begin the demonstration. Show them what mercy looks like when it's too late to ask for it." The hunt was about to become an execution, and the galaxy was about to learn that humans were very, very good at killing. The Cathara system was the heart of the Zephyrian Empire. 15 billion people lived on 7 worlds protected by the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. Admiral Kexton had gathered over 2,000 warships in layered defenses around the twin suns. Massive shield generators powered by stellar energy created barriers that could stop anything. Fleet Admiral Kexton stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching his forces take position. Every ship captain in the Empire was here. The greatest military minds of their species had designed these defenses. Nothing could break through. "Sir," his sensor officer reported, "we are detecting hyperspace distortions. Multiple contacts approaching." "How many ships?" Kexton asked. I cannot get an accurate count, sir. The signatures are unlike anything we have seen." Kexton nodded calmly. "Let the humans come. They would break themselves against Zephyrian might just like every other enemy had done." The human fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. Admiral Drake stood on the bridge of her flagship Retribution, watching the alien defenses on her tactical display. 2,000 ships, orbital weapons platforms, planetary shields. It was impressive. It would not be enough. "Dr. King," Drake spoke, into her communicator. "Are the Prometheus arrays in position?" "Confirmed, Admiral. All 6 arrays are locked onto the target stars, awaiting your order." Drake looked at her chronometer. 47 minutes since they had arrived in the system. The Zephyrians were probably still trying to count her ships. "Execute Genesis protocol. Primary targets are the stellar cores. Light years away, 6 hidden devices activated simultaneously. Dr. King's gravitational weapons did not target the Zephyrian fleet or their planets. They targeted something much more fundamental. The twin suns that powered the entire system. The stars began to die. Admiral Kexton watched his instruments in horror as both suns started to collapse. The gravitational fields that held his defensive formation steady began to fluctuate wildly. Ships that had been in perfect position suddenly found themselves spinning out of control. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Sir, the stars are going critical. Something is causing them to collapse. That is impossible. No weapon can affect a star." His science officer looked up from her instruments, her face pale with terror. "Sir, the humans are not just targeting our ships. They are killing our suns." The collapse accelerated. The twin stars of Cathara, which had burned for billions of years, began their final dance. Gravitational waves rippled through the system, tearing apart the carefully planned defensive positions. Captain Sandra Mitchell watched from the bridge of her assault carrier Nemesis as the Zephyrian fleet struggled to maintain formation. The aliens were good soldiers, but their technology could not fight the basic forces of physics. "All ships begin attack run," she ordered. "Target the command vessels first." The human fleet moved forward like a pack of hunting wolves. Their ships appeared and disappeared, using quantum technology the Zephyrians could not track. When they fired, their weapons passed through alien shields as if they were not there. The battle was not a fight. It was an execution. Admiral Kexton felt his flagship shudder as human weapons tore through its hull. Around him, the greatest fleet in Zephyrian history was being destroyed piece by piece. Ships that had conquered dozens of worlds were dying like insects. "Sir, we are receiving a communication from the human fleet," his communications officer reported. "Put it through." Admiral Drake's face appeared on the main screen. She looked calm, professional, almost bored. Behind her, the bridge of her ship hummed with quiet efficiency. "Admiral Kexton, I am Admiral Susan Drake of the Terran Fleet. You are probably wondering how we are doing this." Kexton said nothing. Around him, his officers watched in stunned silence as their empire died. "The answer is simple," Drake continued. "We have been preparing for this day for 200 years. While you were busy conquering weaker species, we were learning how to kill efficiently. While you celebrated your victories, we were building weapons you cannot imagine." Another explosion rocked Kexton's flagship. Emergency lights flickered in the growing darkness. "Your people made a mistake at New Haven," Drake said. "You killed our children. You thought we were weak because we were peaceful. You thought we would surrender because we are few." Drake leaned forward slightly. "You were wrong about everything." Lieutenant Danny Cross monitored communications from his ship observer, watching as the Zephyrian home fleet sent its final messages. Desperate pleas for mercy. Requests for evacuation ships, orders that would never be followed. "Admiral," he reported, "the Zephyrians are trying to surrender." "Too late," Drake replied coldly. "They showed no mercy to our children. They will receive none from us." The twin suns of Cathara reached critical mass. The gravitational collapse that Dr. King had triggered 30 minutes earlier finally reached its conclusion. The stars exploded in a burst of energy that vaporized everything within 3 astronomical units. 15 billion Zephyrians died in less than a second. Their greatest fleet became scattered atoms. Their homeworld became cosmic dust. The Cathara system no longer existed. But the human fleet was not finished. As the stars died, Admiral Drake's ships spread throughout Zephyrian space. They struck at military bases, supply depots, and command centers. Everything the Empire needed to function was systematically destroyed. Colonel Lisa Zhang led the Marine assault on the Empire's Central Command facility. Her soldiers moved through the corridors like ghosts, their adaptive armor making them nearly invisible. The Zephyrian defenders never had a chance. "Facility secured," she reported. "All data files captured intact." The intelligence they found was disturbing. Dr. Emma Taylor analyzed the captured documents and discovered the truth. The attack on New Haven had not been random. The 3 major galactic powers had planned to divide human space among themselves. Earth's children were supposed to become slaves. President Carter received the report in her office. She read it twice, then set it down carefully on her desk. So all 3 powers were involved. she said quietly. Yes, ma'am, replied Intelligence Chief Paul Grant. The Zephyrians, the Ethereal Collective, and the hegemony of Voss. They thought they could carve up our territory like a piece of meat. Carter nodded slowly. Then all three will pay the price. She activated her communicator. Admiral Drake, you are authorized to expand operations. Target list is now every species that participated in the conspiracy. Understood, Madam President. We will make them regret their arrogance. The news of Cathara's destruction spread across the galaxy within hours. The Ethereal Collective's ancient minds, which had calculated human defeat as nearly certain, experienced something they had not felt in millennia. Terror. For the first time in their long existence, they understood that they might not be the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The key. Hegemony of Voss called emergency sessions as their member species realized what they faced. The beings they had dismissed as useful servants had just erased the most powerful military in known space. Ambassador Patricia Stone stood before the Galactic Council and delivered humanity's message to the assembled delegates. Her words were simple and direct. The Zephyrian Empire existed for 3,000 years. It took us 47 minutes to destroy it completely. Any species that threatens humanity or its interests will share their fate. The council chamber fell silent. Representatives, who had ruled the galaxy for centuries, stared at the human ambassador in shocked disbelief. You cannot be serious, said the ethereal delegate. No single species can dominate the galaxy. Patricia smiled coldly. We are not dominating anything. We are simply removing threats to our children's future. The Zephyrians killed 200,000 innocents. We have killed 15 billion soldiers and their supporters. We consider this a fair exchange. She looked around the chamber at the faces of beings who had thought themselves untouchable. You all participated in the plan to divide our territory. You all thought human children would make good slaves. You were all wrong. The ambassador activated a holographic display showing human fleet positions. Red markers appeared around every major alien world. Our ships are already in position around your core systems. We have weapons that can kill stars, technologies that make us invisible, and the will to use both. The only question now is whether you will surrender peacefully or follow the Zephyrians into extinction. In the depths of space, human ships moved like silent death toward their targets. The galaxy's ancient powers, who had ruled for thousands of years, were about to learn what happened when they attacked the wrong species. The reckoning had begun, and humanity was just getting started. 6 months after New Haven burned, the galaxy looked very different. The Zephyrian Empire was gone, scattered to the winds like dust. The Ethereal Collective's ancient homeworlds were dark and empty. The hegemony of Voss had broken apart into dozens of small governments, each begging humanity for protection from their former allies. Admiral Susan Drake stood on the observation deck of her flagship, now called the Terran Imperial Command Ship Retribution. Through the massive windows she could see Earth's new fleet patrolling the space around what had once been the galactic capital. Ships that had been hidden for decades now flew openly, their weapons pointed at anyone foolish enough to challenge the new order. It had not been the war anyone expected. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy through long campaigns and bloody battles. They had simply demonstrated that resistance was pointless. When you could kill stars and make entire fleets disappear, most species chose surrender over extinction. President Helen Carter, now called the first human by the rest of the galaxy, walked through the halls of the former ethereal palace. The ancient building had stood for 10,000 years, home to minds older than human civilization. Now it served as the capital of human space, though Carter took no pleasure in the irony. The morning reports, ma'am, said her aide, handing her a datapad filled with information from across the galaxy. Carter read through the daily briefing. 17 species had requested permission to build new military ships. All requests denied. 3 governments had asked for human protection from their neighbors. All requests approved, with conditions. The galaxy was learning to live under human rules. She had not wanted this job. None of them had. Humans had spent centuries trying to avoid exactly this situation. But when the choice was between ruling the galaxy and watching their children die, The decision was easy. Captain Jake Morrison, younger brother of the merchant captain killed at New Haven, commanded the occupation forces on the former ethereal core world of Synthesis. His ship, the UHS Never Forget, carried weapons that could crack planets, but today it was delivering medical supplies to refugee camps. The irony was not lost on him. Humans had become the galaxy's rulers by demonstrating their ability to destroy everything. Now they spent most of their time rebuilding what the war had broken. "Status report," he asked his first officer, Lieutenant Sarah Kim. "Refugee processing is ahead of schedule," she replied. "The ethereal survivors are adapting to their new circumstances. Most seem relieved that we are not executing them." Jake nodded. Many species had expected humanity to be as brutal in victory as they had been in war. Instead, humans had proven to be surprisingly merciful rulers. As long as nobody threatened human children, they were content to let other species live their lives in peace. Commander Tony Walsh led the Galactic Enforcement Division, the black ships that patrolled every sector of known space. His vessels carried the authority to destroy entire civilizations if necessary, but mostly they served as reminders. Reminders that humanity was watching. Reminders that peace existed only through strength. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "we are receiving a distress call from the Corvin sector. Pirates are attacking a civilian transport." "Response time?" Tony asked. 14 minutes at maximum speed. Make it 10. Show them what happens when criminals threaten innocent lives." The pirate ship was vaporized before its crew even realized human ships were in the area. The rescued civilians were mostly former hegemony citizens, people whose government had collapsed when humanity dismantled their military. They thanked their rescuers in broken human speech, grateful to be alive. Dr. Rachel Kim ran the Institute for Galactic Peace from her headquarters on Luna. Her job was to prevent future conflicts by monitoring every species for signs of aggression. She had teams of analysts watching communication networks, trade patterns, and military buildups across thousands of worlds. "Any threats this week?" asked her assistant. "3 minor ones," Rachel replied, highlighting locations on her star map. "The Valkan Republic is building ships beyond their quota. The Terran Confederacy is developing new weapons, and there are reports of slavery in the Outer Rim." Response: Standard procedure. Send warnings to the first 2. Deploy enforcement ships to the 3rd. It was quiet work, but essential. The galaxy had learned to fear human anger. Rachel's job was to make sure that anger never needed to wake up again. The former Galactic Council building had been converted into a museum. Tour groups walked through halls where alien diplomats had once plotted humanity's destruction. The exhibits were simple but effective. Pictures of New Haven before the attack, lists of the dead, recordings of the Zephyrian demands. Ambassador Patricia Stone led a group of young alien students through the memorial section. They were the children of species that had survived the war, born into a galaxy where humans ruled supreme. "Why did they attack you?" asked a young Anari girl, her large eyes wide with curiosity. Patricia knelt down to the child's level. "Because they thought we were weak. Because they believed strength only came from hurting others. They learned that some species become more dangerous when you threaten their families." The students nodded solemnly. Their teachers had made sure they understood the lesson. In this new galaxy, there was only one rule that mattered: never threaten human children. Dr. Alex King had retired from weapons development and returned to his first love, space exploration. His ships now carried scientists instead of soldiers, exploring the galaxy that humanity had inherited. They discovered new worlds, made contact with isolated species, and shared knowledge freely. But his weapons still existed, hidden in bases throughout human space. Every species knew they were there. Every government understood that crossing humanity meant facing technology that could unmake stars. Sarah Morrison, widow of the merchant captain killed at New Haven, stood at the viewing port of the colony. Ship never again. Around her, families prepared for their new life on a world that had once belonged to the Zephyrian Empire. Her children played in the ship's gardens, laughing and running without fear. "Are you excited about our new home?" she asked her daughter. Yes, Mama. Will there be other children to play with? Yes, sweetheart. Lots of children. Human children. Safe children. Children who will never have to worry about bad aliens hurting them. The ship emerged from hyperspace around a blue and green world that reminded Sarah of Earth. Cities built by Zephyrians dotted the continents. Empty now, but ready for new inhabitants. The terraforming was perfect, the climate ideal, the resources abundant. It was a nice consolation prize for genocide. President Carter addressed the galaxy on the first anniversary of New Haven's destruction. Her words were broadcast to every inhabited world, translated into thousands of languages, archived for future generations. 1 year ago, the Zephyrian Empire made a choice. They chose to murder our children to demonstrate their power. Today, their empire is dust and their homeworld is a memory. She paused, looking directly into the camera. We did not want to rule the galaxy. We wanted to explore it, trade with its peoples, and build a better future for our children. But when forced to choose between your empires and our families, the choice was simple. Today, the galaxy is at peace. Not the peace of mutual respect that we once hoped for, but the peace of absolute order. Every species lives safely under human protection. Every world prospers under human law. Every child grows up knowing that no one will hurt them for entertainment or profit. This is not the galaxy we wanted to create, but it is the galaxy you forced us to build. We hope your children will be wiser than you were. The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, billions of beings continued their lives under the watchful eyes of human ships. They farmed their worlds, raised their families, and pursued their dreams. They were free to do anything except one thing. They could never again threaten human children. In her private office, President Carter looked at the reports from across human space. New colonies were thriving. Trade was expanding. Scientific discoveries were advancing rapidly. The galaxy was more peaceful and prosperous than it had ever been. It had only cost the destruction of 3 empires and the deaths of 30 billion beings to achieve it. She set down the reports and walked to her window, looking out at the stars. Somewhere in that vast darkness, Jake Morrison's brother had died trying to protect innocent people. Somewhere in that endless night, 200,000 humans had been murdered for the crime of existing. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity was not the species to attack. They were not the race to underestimate. They were not the people to threaten. Most importantly, they were not the species whose children you killed if you wanted to continue existing. The new order was complete. The galaxy belonged to humanity now, not through choice, but through necessity. They had not wanted to become gods of war, but gods of war they had become, and the universe was safer for it.